pleasure to have everyone here. We have a very, very special call for you tonight. It's on one of the ingredients in the world is absolutely changing people's lives. It's called Fucoidan. That's spelled Fucoidan, Fucoidan. And we have a very special guest tonight, Dr. Charles Rouse, to really guide us through that and tell us what Fucoidan is. And the reason the call is really special tonight because we're going to focus on several of the over 800 medical studies that are out there on Fucoidan and the amazing things that Fucoidan does. If you have not looked at those studies, go ahead and go to a website it's called, my mind just went here. Dr. Rouse, I'm going to bring you on and get that. It's called pubmed.org, pubmed.org. And go to that website and enter Fucoidan, Fucoidan, and you will be amazed at the studies that you get on there. It'll be some great reading. Usually on those studies, they're real complicated, but if you read the first couple sentences and the last couple sentences, they really talk about what the study is about. And then tonight, Dr. Rouse is about to do that with us, and if you have not heard Dr. Rouse, what a great speaker he is. Dr. Rouse is a doctor of natural medicine, also a registered pharmacist, and an ordained minister. And we are so happy and fortunate to have Dr. Rouse as head of our medical advisory board here at Xperia. So without further ado, I'd like to bring Dr. Rouse on and tell us about these medical studies on Fucoidan. Dr. Rouse, are you with us?
Hey, Dr. Rouse is in the house, and Jack, we appreciate the opportunity tonight. Well, let's give everybody a quick quiz on what's up. And by the way, when on the first slide there, it almost looks like a birthday confetti. It's actually a organic chemistry design of this is what the Fucoidan molecule looks like. It is an amazing amount of energy. It is a wound up, ready to go, unique. On the Fucoidan side, whenever they get the plant from the seabed, most people have used just any portion ground up for fertilizer. They have fed parts of seaweed to animals for years, but Fucoidan that we use in research that we're going to talk about tonight is different. They open up the stem, and the stem portion is not utilized. They open up the leaf, and the leaf is not utilized. It's all inside. We're talking about the alginate compounds, we're talking about the polysaccharides, the sulfated sulfur part of the chemistry that we're looking into. And because Fucoidan in research has become a starlet, we're seeing people that have been skeptics for years take note in the research of Fucoidan in cancer research. And 20 years ago, when I first entered into pharmacognosy, natural medicine, one thing that was highly prevalent in cancer research, coming primarily out of Canada, was Easiac. Easiac tea, a nurse named Cassie, and Easiac is just her name spelled backwards. For years, Easiac was the nutrition that everybody wanted to be the miracle cure, and FDA put the quietus on it. Canadian government never gave it any big hallelujahs. So Easiac has just sort of been used through the years by people with cancer, not knowing whether it was good or bad. 10 years ago comes along Daniel chapter 1, and they start introducing to the world market a 7-herb formula. And people have tried 7-herb formula for a lot of different cancer reasons, but unfortunately FDA put the quietus on that. But now we have glycobiology at a new world scientific step. We have new instrumentations. We have new ways of measuring the blood chemistry, the natural killer cells, the lymphocytes, the B cells, T cells, all the things that come to us in the power of the Fucoidan molecule are being very researched. So if I were to ask you a question, in cancer, people who get cancer, is it more prevalent in men or women? And the answer is men. 1 out of every 2 men, cancer. Women, 1 out of every 3. So we're looking at something that is very prevalent. And you think about this. Even like in women, breast cancer, the primary cause of death between young women aged 35 to 54, the primary cause of death. And despite all the great strides of medical knowledge and cancer research, mark this down, cancer rates have increased dramatically in the last 40 years. In the 1960s, 1 in 20 women developed breast cancer. Today, that number is 1 in 8. And sadly, 1/4 of those that do develop breast cancer will die from breast cancer. So when we look at cancer, it is something that is very devastating. 1 out of every 2 men are going to get it. 1 out of every 3 women, unless some major steps are made and some major changes in lifestyle. Now, let's say that somebody already has had cancer or has cancer. Then here is a very simple medical warning. Don't fall asleep again. Let cancer be your wake-up call. You see, just as cancer causes us to reevaluate our daily decisions, so does a police officer bring our attention back to the laws when we may be violating. You know, if we get caught and the guy gives us a ticket, then we know better the next time. Well, let cancer be the warning. And trying to conquer the fear of this cancer, that's a lot. Now, what is happening is there's so much chemistry involved. And one example of a simple two-stage process of causing cancer, promotion. Tonight, we could actually cause skin cancer on you if we took a section of your skin and we put a carcinogenic hydrocarbon on it. Let me explain what a carcinogenic hydrocarbon is. That's cigarette smoke. All right, so we're going to rub cigarette smoke onto your skin. Is that going to cause cancer? No. But listen very carefully. If I put a drop of croton oil on top of that carcinogenic hydrocarbon, on top of that cigarette smoke that I've just put on your skin, cancer will result in almost every single case. By the way, what is croton oil? Castor oil. Something as simple as a chemistry of castor oil will always cause skin cancer on a patient when they're in the presence of tobacco smoke. Now, there are a lot of carcinogenic things out there besides tobacco smoke. PCBs, polyvinyl chlorides. I mean, what is a polyvinyl chloride? That's a garden hose. That's a raincoat. That's the electrical insulation around your wires in your house. That's the floor tiles in your kitchen, your bathroom. That's the dressings around your windows in every one of your homes. That's the containers that you Tupperware your stuff and put it back in the refrigerator with. That's the credit cards. Every time you put a credit card in your hand, you're picking up polyvinyl chloride. All right, all of those things can become carcinogenic. The smoke from an old coal train. You remember the choo-choo trains used to go up and down and they just burn black coal? Did you know that smoke is carcinogenic? All right, we're in a world of carcinogenic compounds. We're in a mess because everywhere we go, there is cancer-producing stuff. Now, in the world of cancer, they come in all different shapes and sizes. Carcinoma, that's generally something that infiltrates the surface, like skin or the lining of a stomach, or down in the large intestines or in the bronchial areas of the lungs. That's called a carcinoma. A sarcoma goes down to the connective tissue. That's what we call muscle, bone, cartilage. A melanoma, that's something that gets down in the pigment-producing cells, like the retina of the eye, or what causes the color of the skin. A melanoma, that's getting into the pigment. A myeloma, myeloma means some kind of cancer in the blood, a blood like bone marrow, something that's in that area. And then a lymphoma means that it's gotten into the lymphatic system. But let's not work on all the cancers tonight. Let's not get bogged down in what a cancer is or where a cancer comes from, because the fact is that a normal healthy cell is designed by God just to go through a whole bunch of series of steps to ensure life. And God designed every one of those cells to grow, divide, to die, but everything on symphonic performance to perfection. And with the trillions of cells, you're not going to believe this, but millions of cells die every second. Every second. So you're constantly in the production. You have to produce a good cell for the one that just died. And during this highly complex process, the cell has a code, a library. It's called DNA. And that book has to be perfectly Xeroxed and absolutely with perfection transferred from dead dying cell to new life cell. It has to duplicate. It has to transfer it. And it has to do it without error. No mistakes. But every once in a while, a glitch gets in there, something starts messing up, something starts playing with the cell structure, and we have an abnormality. That's called a malignancy. And then the immune system gets turned on itself, and the multiplication begins unchecked. And now this cell structure starts stealing nutrients, and then it starts rerouting the blood supply away from the normal body function. All those things are part of it. Now, the cell is designed by God, pre-programmed to die on schedule. That is called apoptosis. So everything revolves around the apoptotic side of life. And what we're doing is we're trying to figure out what makes a cell become healthier. How are we going to keep our normal cells dying, living, dying, living? But at the same time, we want every cell that's tumorous, every cell that's trying to be malignant, every cell that's trying to be mean, we want to be toxic to it only. We want to be cytotoxic, cell death. We want to perform the apoptosis only on the cancer cell, but at the same time never touch the good cell. Now, in medicine for years, they've tried chemotherapy, radiation. Oh, they have tried everything under the sun, from burning it to chemicalizing it. But nobody can match God. God is the creator of every human cell. God is the creator of every plant material. And they're finding in Fucoidan, a very special plant, that in a mixed Fucoidan even, the one that has more than just one simple species, that it actually has the apoptosis capability. So on the slide, what we're seeing is that Fucoidan enhances apoptosis. It goes after and creates a perfect environment that causes the killing of cancer cells, but not hurting, nor damaging, nor creating any chaos or confusion to one healthy cell. So only God can do that. And we're fortunate that God is giving us, the human being, the intellectual design to harvest his creation from the seabed, to utilize it in the most structural, concentrated form, to make Fucoidan available for the human system. And now we're finding that cytotoxicity, killing cancer cells, tumors, is one thing that Fucoidan is absolutely perfect at. On that slide, Agaricus mycelium, that's a mushroom. Now, wouldn't you believe it? Only God can do that. So from the mushroom field to the seabed, God has created an orchestra of dynamic truth. On the next slide, Jack, we're showing, this is a control study. I know PubMed is where some of the research was written, but the slide you're looking at is actually done by NPO. That's a Japanese, like a PubMed. If you went to NPO, Fucoidan Research Lab, you would find that they're doing the internal, the amazing research over there. And in the control studies, they had these tumor cells left unchecked. This is how these rascals grow very quickly. And with Fucoidan, every simple treatment, they were using concentrated Fucoidan, and in the presence, these tumors were shrinking drastically, amazingly. And in the Fucoidan mix, after a good while of it, the whole body system was just taking over. The slide that impressed me the most was the natural killer cells. In the human body, the next slide up, in the human body, the natural killer cells are orchestrated by God to work on this genetic code, the cell that's not able to do right because of hormones, because of pesticides, because of radiation, stress, toxic agents, viruses, nutritional deficiencies. All those things give cancer a green light. But whenever your natural killer cells are proactive, then you have the control over pesticides, irrational hormones, radiation, stress, toxic agents, viruses, nutritional deficiencies. It's a neat thing. The key risk factors that are out there. We live in a world of xenoestrogen. That's the fake side of it. And so because we're in a world today, what are we going to do? Now on this slide it says starchy foods. Not everything on there is bad. But what is happening is we have become so starch, sugar, carbohydrate related that when we pick up our syrup bottle, it's not sugar anymore, it's high fructose corn syrup. And over in our sugar bowl, we start looking at an influx that is just absolutely gone bonkers. For example, in the 1700s, back in George Washington's day, sugar was a commodity so unique that only the wealthy had it, and they locked it up in their cabinets. And on an average American in the 1700s, only 4 pounds of sugar per year were consumed. By the 1800s, sugar was beginning to move around a little bit, and 18 pounds of sugar per year was utilized by the average American. And by the 1900s, 90 pounds of sugar was being used. Last year, 2010, 50%, one half of the American population consume 1/2 pound of sugar every single day. That's 180 pounds of sugar. Refined sugar annihilates your natural killer cells. Your white blood cells are paralyzed. So when people are on a high sugary diet, from the cake to the candy to the syrup to the sugar, they're in for it. And when they start adding sugary cereals, whether you call it Cheerios or Total or all those things are maltose, dextrose, sugarized. And we're in a world today where the body has just been overwhelmed and absolutely inundated. So on the PubMed research, they come along and they start looking at Fucoidan. And yes, they found that it does cause amazingly miraculous killing of cancer cells, but not at the expense of a good cell. So we're looking at something that is producing anti-tumors, anti-angiogenic. When we say angiogenesis, that means that whatever it is, that living molecule has a blood system that's producing more blood vessels. And if you let a cancer start producing its own blood vessels to where it'll rob, kill, and steal from the human body at the expense of life from that human body, that's a bad thing. So on a cancer cell, we need anti-angiogenesis. We need to go against that cancer cell's ability to produce its own blood vessels, but not at the expense of all the other good cells that need their blood vessels. Everything has to be in sympathy. The symphonic orchestra needs to play with perfection. Fucoidan is a marvelous molecule. It is anti-angiogenic. It means that it cuts off the blood supply of cancer. It means that it is anti-tumor. That means the pictures you saw. Those tumor cells are shrinking, not growing. And another thing about the sulfated molecule, it has a chemistry similar to heparin. Heparin keeps the blood very smooth and very non-coagulating. We don't want clots. We don't want platelet aggregation. We don't want things getting soupy and sticky. We want the blood to flow free and molecules to be able to work potentially in a healthy state. And because of that, the Fucoidan molecule is anti-metastatic. When a cancer is over here and it wants to move over there, that's called metastasis. It moves from one system to the other for survival. But Fucoidan is anti-metastasis. That means that if somebody has a cancer in the lung or the breast or the prostate or the brain or wherever, then you want to not allow it to be flowing, moving, or free. That's the Fucoidan entry. It stops metastasis. Because now the active natural killer cells are on police guard 24/7. And what happens in some of the latest research is we're finding that Fucoidan annihilates H. pylori bacteria. You see, H. pylori bacteria, the one that causes ulcers, duodenal and peptic ulcers, is also going to, if left unchecked, very likely cause gastric cancer. Isn't it neat? Fucoidan kills H. pylori, thus reducing the risk of gastric cancer. We're in a whole new world. We're talking about something that can can block the platelet selectins, the endothelial selectins, reducing inflammation, drastically reducing inflammation in the blood vessels, the colon, the bowel sections, all different areas. And the one thing we don't want is for some kind of carcinogen, a hydrocarbon or a chemical to get bound up, to get tied up, to get mixed up in our DNA, because if that molecule gets hung up in the middle of our DNA in the amino acid structure, it sends the wrong code and everything goes crazy. The chromosomes begin to mess around, the immature cancer cells start to grow, the deceptive measures of the cancer start taking hold, and away they go. Away they go. PubMed has over 188 related articles just to the intervention of how nutrition is being used in apoptosis and anti-angiogenic reasons. And think about this. If we're talking about breast cancer, from 1960, 1 out of every 20, now in today's market, 1 in 8, we're holding something that is absolutely a necessity to get the word out, because Fucoidan has the strong capability of prevention. And prevention is the key to prevention of, whether we talk about any degenerative disease, whether it's heart, liver, lung, or in this case that we're talking about tonight, breast cancer. Different things, but we come along. Now, I'm going to go off stage here a minute, and this is Charlieology. This is Charles Rouse's personal opinion. When it comes to detection of breast cancer, most medical societies and people depend upon the mammogram. And every October I see in the Breast Cancer Prevention Month the national campaign that every woman needs to have an annual mammogram. Now, does mammograms prevent cancer? Is it a diagnostic tool? Does it discover cancer fast enough? Well, when they started looking at the benefits of mammography and the concerns that were there, they realized there are a lot of false positives. That means that you have been diagnosed with cancer that is not there. And they found that women in their 40s, unfortunately, that most of their breast tissue is very dense. And because of that, the mammography is not as effective. So when it got down to it, the MRI was 96% accurate, but a mammogram was only 42% accurate. That means that you got a failure rate in mammography. You're exposing the tissue with radiation that can cause cancer. And you got a 60% failure rate. Mammograms are 60% failure, 40% positive. So compared to an MRI, 96% accurate. But then you come along, there's another tool out there that's even greater called thermography. And it's even less expensive than an MRI. And I don't know why. I have no idea why they're not using more thermography, the infrared imaging, which is non-invasive, painless, and is much more effective. But we live in a whole world today where I think that once they buy the X-ray machine, the mammography machine, and they got their money involved in it, that it's more of a money issue than it is in a health issue. But we're talking about Fucoidan tonight, so that's enough Charlieology. Fucoidan is not Charlieology. That is just simply coming out of the clinical research. So let me make a politically correct statement. It's almost like you have to make everything politically correct these days, or they'll fine you. I don't want to get anybody in any trouble. Fucoidan supports the normal disposal of any cell that's not native, not good to the human body. Fucoidan will help stimulate the immune system whenever your body is being attacked. Fucoidan will modulate your immune system. When it's overreactive, it'll bring it down. Underreactive, it'll bring it up. Fucoidan will support normal cell growth. Fucoidan supports blood circulation to good native body cells, but allows the enemy to die. Fucoidan will help regenerate good skin tissue faster, and it supports all other structures like joint mobility, etc., etc. So there's a lot out there, Jack. And these reports, though, the anti-tumor effects, they're real. And the ability of just studying the power behind Fucoidan. Can you imagine if Fucoidan got in the same bucket with a vitamin D3 that's also got as much research behind it as being anti-cancer? Imagine what you would have. A little D3 and a little Fucoidan goes a long ways. Anyhow, I'm very proud. I'm very proud to be taking Fucoidan myself every single day. I drink it every day. My wife drinks it every day, and I'm a big proponent of it because there are no negatives. It is non-toxic. It will do you no harm, but it certainly does enough good. Enough good to say, come on, world. Come on, American Cancer Society. Come on, Canadian American Society, Cancer Society. Look at, study. Let's do a whole lot more human research, and let's just see and see and see, because we know what the results are going to be. Absolutely phenomenal.
Well, Dr. Rouse, I know that you and I did a lot of studies on this. We really wanted to bring this forward, especially for the ladies on the call and the ladies everywhere that we surely love, especially about what you did concerning breast cancer. And I know that we probably need to let everybody know that everything we were reading and all the studies they were dealing, when they're dealing with this disease, they were using, I think, 1,000 milligrams per day of the Fucoidan. For this. But let's say, give us, for instance, I'm making sure, because I believe that, exactly what you said, to be preventive. And I'm making sure that Gloria, because I want to protect her life, I'm making sure she takes, 500 to 600 milligrams of Fucoidan every single day. Could you give us an idea of what we definitely need to be taking to prevent various things?
That's going to be in the 4 scoops per day, 2 scoops twice a day. Mm-hmm. And in some of that tumor reduction there would be like using up to 6 scoops per day.
Right.
So there's no harm in it.
And each scoop has
prevention.
Right, yeah. And each scoop has 100 milligrams. So so definitely 400, but 600 would be pretty strong. Is that correct?
That's getting right in there with the best of them.
Okay. All right. Well, good.
Because you see, some of these things were done with singular entities. We're talking about 5 specific nutritionals that are very proactive.
Correct. And I know our time is about up, and we appreciate that. We're going to do a few more of these dealing with the clinical studies on other issues. And I know we haven't talked about any products tonight at all. We're just talking about a natural ingredient called Fucoidan. And, even if we were talking about products, we know that our products don't prevent or cure any disease, even though we haven't spoken of those tonight. Again, we're just speaking of an ingredient that Dr. Rouse wanted to talk about, Fucoidan. So definitely look into it. Make sure you're taking the right amount. If anyone has any problems, make sure they're taking a large amount. Again, Dr. Rouse, very, very informative, and we really appreciate the call tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Enjoyed researching it. I love the way you guys give me a topic, because it just turns me loose. And once I go look, oh, man, you wouldn't believe it. My paper stack over here has to be at least 6 inches thick just on Fucoidan research. Recent.
Right. And I know there's, just on Fucoidan alone, there's over 800 studies, medical studies, on PubMed. So everyone, definitely PubMed.org or PubMed.com. Do some study. You'll find out other things about Fucoidan. And again, make sure you're taking the right amount and take it every single day. Dr. Rouse, we appreciate the call, and thanks everyone for being on the call. What a great one. And we'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks everybody, and good night.